Hello everyone, it is Joe here from OmniPoke, the channel that brings you guys everything Pokemon. Today we're going over the Unbroken Bonds buy list. This was very popular last time, and because this is a over 200 card set, it's absolutely monstrous. We need to try and decipher which ones we need to buy and how much of each. So let's start off the same as last time, going off of a core essentials buy list. This is really for cards that I expect to be involved in tier 1 or 2 decks or have obvious future potential. Starting off in the top left corner, you can see Pokegear, Green Search, Giovanni's, and Lieutenant Surge. I think you should get all of these in high counts. Greens and Pokegear essential, really. They will be the core of a bunch of engines. Even Pokegear in like 1 or 2 counts will be sneaking into decks just because it's that solid of a card. So these will definitely see a huge amount of play. I've also been kind of on the cautious side, saying that you should get 4 Giovanni's Exile. It may end up being one of those tech cards that ends up being like a 1 or 2 count in a random deck here or there. I could see potentially a Zoroark picking it up, stuff like that. I've cautiously given it a 4. I think you could possibly go down lower on that card, but I think when it's trainers and stuff, I always like to be on the cautious side and get a bunch of them in. 3 Lieutenant Surge, I think it's very rare you'll ever need 4 copies. Even in the milling variants we've seen be successful, it's been 3 as a maximum count. Going just below that, we have the Dusk Stone as a 4 count, as well as the 2 users of Dusk Stone that we get from this set. The Honchkrow GX with that really awkward ability to get through, and its unfair GX attack. And then we have the Miss Magius, which initially I wasn't too sold on, but I'm getting more and more convinced by its power, as we're seeing some quad tag team decks coming out that can take advantage of this without affecting the prize trade. And even if this doesn't see play immediately, it has obvious potential with reset stamp in future sets. So even if it does flop when Unbroken Bonds first releases, it has the second chance of reset stamp of making it a far superior card. So get them in now, may as well. Just below that, we have Gardevoir and Sylveon, one of the most powerful tag teams from the set. I think this and Reshizard are the 2 most hyped tag teams, and I think because this is going to be the face of a quad build, you literally need to get 4, and then 2 copies of each of the new charms. I don't think you'll ever need like 3 counts of any of these charms. It feels like there'll be a 2 count as a maximum, with the potential to play something like Diantha to recover them in a matchup where it's going to be relevant, so I think just the 2 counts for each is fine. To the right, we're going to see a couple grass tech Pokemon, really. I think Buzz Ferromosa is too good of a card to not really get your hands on, just for that Beast Game GX attack. We've seen even things like Zapdos Ultra Beasts adding this in Japanese builds just so you can use that Beast Game to jump ahead in the prize race even further, which is really, really interesting. And then there's also the Kartana. It is basically a Buzzwole, but has free retreat and is hitting for grass weaknesses, which we know is relevant, especially if there are grass-type tech Pokemon coming out. Water-type tech Pokemon weak to grass. To try and meet up against some of these fire-type Pokemon. That's going to be important, as well as Lycanroc, which is always going to be something relevant in the metagame. Just above them, we have the fighting support, really. I think 1 Machamp Marshadow should be fine. It feels like it's only ever really a one-of index. I don't think he's good enough to be the face of his own archetype. But as a nice revenge-style attacker, he still seems to be a really relevant typing for the Pikaroms and the Zoroarks out there. So it's a nice one-off to pick up. Couple Quagsires, again, his typing is just so good, and I can see him overtaking Onix in the build, just because you're already playing such a thick Quag line, and it's 1 less energy that burns. Obviously, normally going to be playing Batons anyway at this point, but essentially makes him a free attacker as long as your Baton sticks. So he's just that much quicker than the Onix, and isn't an awkward lead for you as well, because you're just going to be happy to lead a Wooper whenever you do. So yeah, I like the Quagsire. I don't think it'll ever be above a 2 count, so just pick them up. They're just going to be an uncommon, I think. Maybe just a rare, so pretty easy to get your hands on. Boost Energy, similar to the Pokegear. This is just like a splashable card that can be in a whole heap of decks, similar to like DCE, really. Bunch of evolutions are going to really take advantage of this. The 2 that love seeing this from the set more than most is going to be the Dugong. Again, I feel like the 4 count may be like as high as possible, but I don't really see many decks actually going for the full 4, but having the option is fine. Again, this will just be a rare and uncommon, so it won't really break the bank just to get the extra Dugong in, just to have it for safekeeping. You'll notice as well, I've got some of the previous evolutions under some of these slides as well, just letting you know that they're either you have to get the new basic, or like there's a new one that has potential to be the best basic. For example, we already have a Murkrow but this Murkrow has additional synergy with Honchkrow, so I think it forces discards from your opponent's hand and stuff. So if I've got the card underneath, like the little Prevolution underneath, I would also suggest getting those basics in as well. But yeah, Dugong seems really, really powerful with triple boost energy, really nice answer to Baby Blounds, and lots of Zoroark decks have gone towards that route. Same story for the Persian GX, really. If you want to go higher on Persian, you can. If you're trying to build a quad Persian deck, be my guest. I'd be more than happy to see this deck succeed on its own. But a lot of the time, this is just a sort of tech 1-1 or 2-2 line in Zoroark builds just to give you that benefit of its ability and also have a backup attacker from boost energy as well. So really nice card overall. Unmanned Power Plant as a 4-count. I think, again, it's just one of these stadiums that will see play over the course of its existence. Just very, very powerful disruption that we have access to now, which is pretty awesome. Just down below that, we have 2 counts of the Dene and Electromagnetic Radar. The Dene is, again, one of these cards where you may want to go higher and get even more of these. Obviously, we've heard about rotation at this point. Tapu Lele will be leaving us, and the Dene seems to be its spiritual successor. So if you want to get your hands on more of them, thinking about, Worlds format and whatnot, I wouldn't blame you at all. Right now, it seems like it's only really a 1 or 2 count in the decks that it wants to go into, Pikarom probably being the main one, and that's why you've got to get your hands on a couple of radars. I don't really foresee the format ever needing to have multiple radars over like the 2 count, unless, again, it becomes Worlds meta when a lot of our ball search does rotate, and radar may be one of our best means of searching out our stuff. So if you're expecting to play something like this for Worlds, maybe get a few more copies. But for now, I think 2 of each is probably fine. The fast off on the far right, I think they come out as top tier contenders. I would max out the count on all of these, to be honest. The Volcanion has seen play alongside Green Search for the Reshizard as a non-GX attacking threat. Salazzle's seen success, and Baby Blacephalon, although it only really lasts until Reset Stamp is released, it seems to be a powerful contender up until then. So if you're thinking of playing the NAIC, maybe pick up some of those Baby Blounds. I think that'll be worth it. Then we have some great tech Pokemon in the bottom right corner. This is more sort of like, not necessarily that they're going straight into top tier contenders, although a handful of them will be. These are just great binder cards to have, and I would pretty much always stress that someone should have one of these to hand if they're going to a tournament. Things like the Mew, the Marshadow, and the Mewtwo, these all seem to have splash ability and great playability. Like Marshadow and Mew may well be sneaking into, Zoroark decks. Mew even more so into all sorts of different things just to protect against some bench snipes. And the Mewtwo is a little bit more niche, but is pretty nicely searchable and still has that, ever so powerful VS Seeker effect, essentially, but to the top of the deck. So still really powerful and potent, so I'd get your hands on a couple. Then we have the more extended buy list, the believer buy list, I like to call it. So this is really the slide where if you believe in any of these archetypes, if you want to be having fun with these at League Cups and challenges, be my guest. Do go out and grab them yourselves. But overall, I believe these are not really essential to pick up. If you really feel like you want to, you can. But they do still have a good amount of potential. I'd start in the bottom left corner, actually, where I think I've been a little bit harsh on the 3 on the side here. I think Lucario, Whimsicott, and Weezing all may have ended up on the first slide, to be honest, if it wasn't so tight already on space. But yeah, I think these have probably the most potential out of the bunch on the slide that you're seeing here. So Lucario Melmetal, obviously a very reasonable card for its GX attack. Really, really awesome to deny damage being done to it, and it can just Acerola loop and hit for 50 each turn, which is already really good value. So this is nice in some Hooper, Regigigas Walling decks. It may end up just being that exact 2 count and you just have him as an option, which is pretty reasonable, to be fair, for when you're not facing fire stuff. Then you're seeing the Whimsicott. This has seen a reasonable amount of success recently in Japan, alongside the Fairy Charm Lele and Magina to reattach Fairy Charms every turn to confuse the opponent on top of its annoying ability, so it can prevent a lot of damage. This may end up being a reasonable contender, to be honest, and I think getting 4 of these wouldn't be a bad idea at all. 4 Weezings as well. It's kind of like the new face of Tapu Koko, so if spread is going to be relevant, I think Weezing will be the front man for that. Just above those, we have some less important items and supporters to pick up on, but Red's Challenge may end up being that sort of like extra copy in your deck if you really need to. I think especially if we start losing all this ball search, maybe post-rotation this card will start seeing more play, just to grab some key Pokemon at the right time, to be honest, because we're going to be really lackluster in that front. One Beastbringer, I think this is only ever really a one count in decks that play green search. So if you are going to be an Ultra Beast based deck, maybe just grabbing hold of one of these is fine. I don't think it's ever going to be a card where you play like three or four copies. It just sounds silly. And then Zag Pickle, or I think it's called like Frost Ice Axe or something like that in English. But it's trying to disrupt the opponent's top decks for the most part, and it's one of these, if you want to play an all-out combo Disruption Hodgecrow list, I think a couple of these ice picks will make their way into the deck, so pick them up if you're expecting to play that sort of archetype. Then I've pretty much bunched up the other ones for you. There's the Stunfisk Spiritomb archetype, which I don't see having much success. Funnily enough, though, this Spiritomb has seen play alongside a Hooper and Umbreon deck from Shintaro Ito, a previous world champion, so maybe a bit more of a nod towards the Spiritomb than the Stunfisk himself, but that's the best place we've seen him see any success. The Vikavolt list, I'm going to be purchasing myself. I think they're really awesome and fun to play at the very least. Maxing out those counts there. 3 Porygon Z. It's one of those cards similar to Vikavolt where you would only ever play like a 3-0-3 or a 3-1-3 line, but he is still the core energy accelerator for those sorts of archetypes. 3 of the Greninja Zoroarks. I feel like it should never really be a quad build, even if it is going to be an archetype, other than the fact that you can have more chances to start it out of anything else. But if you're playing Nagas anyway, you don't really mind starting Poipoles. But yeah, I think this archetype is below the bar, but some people are still going to try and kind of bring back Turbo Darkrai, so good luck to those people. A couple Blastoise GX. I mean, it's a water Pokemon that's very tanky. There are some selling points here. If there's enough fire in the format, maybe playing a multiple stage 2 deck is worth the risk. For me, I think it's too much of a risk to be a real top tier contender. But hey, he's got some good raw stats and he's, blue. So that's going for him at the very least. So reasonable card there if you're going to try and build the Blastoise based deck. Crabominable fighting alone. If fighting's still a relevant type, he will still remain relevant. And with a green search engine, he's actually more consistent than I was first expecting. So as long as you're not up against some of these quad GX builds that can literally just sit in the active with one Pokemon and you're just doing 30 to it, he might have a place. But if there are going to be quad-based builds, he's going to really struggle. The Giovanni's Milling deck has been one that I've really had fun exploring. I don't think it's quite ready to be called a top-tier contender. I think it's definitely going to stay on the rogue side, but if you like milling people out, those are the cards you're going to need. Just a couple copies of Diglett. I don't think you need to get baited by getting more. They're really not that mandatory. And then finally, there's the Hitmontop and the Fighting Dojo. I'm still stressing to get 4 Fighting Dojo. Like I said on the previous slide, I like being conservative with items and trainers and all that stuff because it just makes sense, really. Just get them in the binder, let them sit there, even if they're not going to see value. This is one of those stadiums that has bags of potential, and it's just waiting for the right fighting type to really bust it. It may be good enough in Hitmonchan right now, but that's really the only options we have, as far as I can see, for things that can really take full advantage of the dojo. So I think getting 4 of these for the binder is definitely a good investment for future. And a couple Hitmontops, it's the finisher of the combo, but that's really it. You don't need to have many more copies. You just need to search out at the right time, get him on board and do that big spread. But yeah, it's never going to be above a 2 count in my opinion. So yeah, that's going to be it for the buy list. Let me know what archetypes you're going to be purchasing from. Where would you put these? Would you say that you're going to be believers of any of the cards on these slides, or are you just going to go for the core essentials? What are you most excited for Unbroken Bonds? I'll hear it all down below. For now, though, it has been Joe from OmniPoke, and I'll see you guys next time. Cheers.